Good morning. I see I've got two of you there. All right, just sending a message to your parents to make sure you get logged in. Almost 10 o'clock, so we're just going to wait another minute. Hope everyone's doing okay. Hey, Q. Hey, Wes. I'm happy we didn't have all those internet issues today that I had yesterday, because that was not very fun to deal with. Yes, I agree, Marquise. All right. So yesterday when I was reading, we talked about how I think his name is John. Yeah, John went into town and he was kind of seeing if there was any gossip going around, anyone talking about the boy, and there was not. And he went home and told Marta, and they were very happy about that. And he brought something home to Jacob, the little boy. Does anyone remember what it was? You can put it in the comments if you do. Nobody remembers? Hey, there you go, Wes. Yes, he brought home jelly beans because that's what John used to eat when he was little. And the boy chose the red jelly bean, placed it on his tongue, tapped his lips twice, and smiled. All right, chapter 8. That night, after the boy had fallen asleep, Marta said, I just can't imagine how anyone could drop off their child at a complete stranger's house. Can you, John? What on earth could they have been thinking? Maybe they had an emergency, but why leave him here? It doesn't make a bit of sense. He still hasn't spoken? Not a word out of him. Do you think he's simply not able to speak? Marta, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what to make of this boy. They've both been puzzled by the boy's silence and equally puzzled by the boy's rap and tap on nearly every surface with sticks, spoons, and whatever object was nearest. He tapped cups on saucers and a comb on a basin. He tapped book against book and stone against stone. If there was no object at hand, there were always his hands and feet patting and flicking and drumming. Maybe it's just what boys do, Marta said. Did you do that when you were young, John? I don't think so. Maybe sometimes, maybe if I had a stick in my hand. It was hard to remember himself as a boy. Sometimes it hardly seemed possible that he'd ever been a boy at all. But other times, he felt he was still a little boy, and he was surprised to be in this big man's body, married and all, with a wife and responsibilities. How could that even happen exactly? John, we should stop calling him boy. It isn't right. It makes him sound, I don't know, like unimportant. At that, the beagle nudged John's leg as if to say, What about me? What about me? We don't even have a name for our dog, do we, Marta? And he's not unimportant. He does have a name, Beagle. But he is a beagle, Marta. I know, and that's why that's a good name for him. Then boy should be a good enough thing to call a boy. John thought, but he didn't say it because as soon as he thought it, he knew it wasn't true. Boy was not a good enough thing to call a boy. His name is Jacob, and that's what we should call him. When do you think the people will come back for him? Soon, don't you think? Surely soon. Chapter 9. John could not sleep. First, he was thinking that he should go to the sheriff's office and report the boy's arrival. But the sheriff would just make a mess of things, scaring the boy, scaring Marta. Maybe the people would come tomorrow. Maybe he should stop worrying. He was not a worrier, so why was he worrying so much? Then he thought about names. Your name is important. Your name makes a statement about you. It describes not only who you are, but who you might be. Could he, John, have been named Franklin or Carter or Richmond or Conrad? No, too formal. Dwight? Theodore? No. Matthew, Mark, Luke? Billy, Willie, Charlie, Sammy? No, he wasn't one of those either. He was John. Solid, reliable, kind John. He wondered what Jacob was. The name was not unlike John's. He was glad of that, although he couldn't have said why. Marta was also awake. She was remembering earlier in the day when Jacob had found a piece of stiff wire fencing and was using it to tap against the stones in bottles and cans. And the sounds that emerged were so beautiful and clear and pure that it seemed as if the boy had been destined to be in this place at this time. Maybe the people would stay a few more days. So I saw Reagan commented that she didn't get to watch the second reading yesterday. And I think that is because my internet was acting all goofy and it didn't save. So just to go over it before I continue on reading, basically what happened yesterday was just that John decided to go to the town to see if anyone was talking about a lost boy, and no one was. And he came home and told Marta that, and he and Marta were actually really excited that no one was talking about the boy because that meant that he could stay a little bit longer. And John seemed skeptical to keep the boy around. And then by the end of the last chapter, he brought the boy jelly beans, something that he ate as a kid, kind of showing us that he had a kind of a special place in his heart for the boy. All right, so if you missed the reading yesterday, that'll kind of sum it up for you. Okay. And then they just ended this chapter with saying maybe the people would stay away a few more days. So they really are enjoying him. Chapter 10. The road at the end of their drive was not heavily traveled, and only rarely did a vehicle turn onto their property, usually with a driver who was lost and seeking directions. John and Marta used to welcome these interruptions into the sameness of their days, but now they were wary of intrusions, alert to the sound of cars or trucks on the road, wondering if this next one would bring back the people. But on the fourth day of the child's stay, John said, "This isn't right, Marta. We must let someone know that the boy is here." Marta knew this to be true. She knew the boy would have to leave, but she didn't want him to go so soon. "Marta, you don't think he was kidnapped, do you?" "Kidnapped? But then why would he be dropped off here?" "Well, maybe the people who dropped him off got lost coming back to get him. Maybe they couldn't find us again." And so that day, Marta and the boy made their way to the barn to feed the animals. John set off down the winding road to town once more. This time, in the general store, as John was paying for his purchases, he asked the owner, Shep Martin, if there'd be any talk about a lost boy. "What kind of lost boy would you be talking about?" Shep asked. Shep was a thin, bald-headed man with a pot belly that hung over his belt like a sack of feed. He didn't like using two words where 10 or 12 might do. "Would you be talking about a teenage kind of boy wandering around drunk and can't find a stupid way home? Or would you be talking about a younger sort of squirt who ran away? Or would you—" "Younger," John said. "Can't say I've heard anybody talking about that. Can't, except for maybe Vernie's grandson. You know the one I mean? The red-headed one with the tattoos? Lord only knows why a person would mess his skin up like that." "Is Vernie's grandson lost?" "Lost in the head, that's what Vernie says. Is that the kind of lost boy you mean?" "No." "Would you be looking for a lost boy? What do you need with a lost boy?" John scooped up his purchases and waved away the questions. "Nah, Shep, I thought I heard someone mention it. I must have misunderstood. Maybe they were talking about Haha, lost parents. You hear anything about lost parents? Lost parents? Would you be looking for lost parents? Why ever? No, 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 Shep. No. Bye now. From there, John drove to the sheriff's office, but sat in his truck for 10 minutes before mustering the will to enter. Inside, he scanned the most wanted posters and the handwritten notices tacked to the bulletin board. Lost. My cow's gone off again. You know the one. Vernie. No dumping in the church dumpster. We mean it. These are the signs that are posted at the sheriff's office. Found 2 black kittens by the creek. I'll keep them if you don't want them back. And I know you don't, or you wouldn't have dumped them there in the first place, Darlene. Darlene, who also happened to be the sheriff's receptionist, asked John what he was looking for. I thought I heard a tell of a lost boy, John said. You lose a boy or find a boy? John had not expected such a direct question. Well, I saw a boy. Well, honey, haven't we all? Haven't we all? John turned to leave. Saw a boy the other day. Looked lost, but if nobody's looking for a lost boy, I must have been mistaken. Lots of boys look lost, Darlene said. John was relieved to leave town. He'd made an honest effort, not the biggest effort, but it was true. He did try. So John did talk to a couple people, but did he tell them that he had found a boy? Mm-mm. So he wasn't super honest. He was just kind of trying to fish around to see if anyone had been talking about a lost boy. Chapter 12. Don't tell me if it's bad news, Marta said. Is it bad? It's bad if you're Vernie Gossam. Now he's lost his cow. But it's good if you're hoping no one has reported a lost boy. No one's reported him missing? That's right. I also asked about lost parents, but there don't seem to be any of those either. Where's the boy? Jacob, now. Up with the goats. I've come down to get us a snack. John, we have something to show you. You are not going to believe your eyes. Up in the barn, the boy was at one end, wielding a 2-inch paintbrush. At his feet were 2 half-used cans of paint. On the wall, he had painted a tall blue tree with a white swing. All around the tree were swirls of blue, like bubbles floating in the air. I didn't do any of it, Marta said proudly. He did it all. A blue tree. I'll read one more. Chapter 12. John and Marta owned 2 cows, received in payment for helping Vernie Gossam build an addition to his house, and a calf that was born about the same time as the baby goats. The elder cows were docile creatures, swinging their big heads slowly as they ate. The calf was still wobbly-legged, like the baby goats, and often the calf and goats would wobble around the pasture, bashing into each other clumsily. Like their beagle, the cows, goats, cats, and kittens did not have names. Marta had thought this a little odd, but John told her it felt silly to give them names. You'd run out of names if you named every animal, he said. On the morning after John had been to town again, he and Marta heard the low mooing of a cow, but they knew instantly it was not their own. Besides, the sound was not coming from the barn or the pasture. It was drifting from up the road. It's probably Vernie's wandering cow, John said, putting on his boots. If it is, you get that cow away from here, John. We don't want nosy Vernie poking around. From the curve halfway down the drive, John could see the fence and the road just beyond. What the? The cow was near the road, as he suspected, but it wasn't roaming loose. It was tied firmly to his fence. John looked up and down the road. He examined the cow, a sturdy one, well-fed, with a sleek coat and bright eyes. He'd seen Vernie's cow before, and this was not Vernie's cow. 2 hours later, the cow was still there, and she was still there after lunch. When John returned to retrieve her and led her up to the barn, he looked at Marta and said, "Looks like we've got more company." So now there has been a cow, left at their property, and a little boy named Jacob left at their property. We'll have to see what's going on with that. All right, I am going to end this. I'm going to send you a Zoom link to your Canvas inbox, and I will see you in just a little bit. Bye.